Well, I am delighted to be speaking to Roy Murphy today. Roy is co founder of Generate, a business focused on applying a centralised intelligence layer for organisations to implement AI successfully. Roy and I actually spoke back in 2023 when he came as the AI expert back in that day. And we also ran a joint webinar about AI for account managers in March 2023. So, and one of the reasons I've invited back Roy on the show is, first of all, to share what he's actually doing with agencies now, because he's doing some really exciting transformation projects, but also because he recently wrote a LinkedIn post that went viral. So, Roy, I'm going to try and say it without laughing. Roy claimed that the agency model, as we know it, has about 16 months left before implosion. He pointed to WPP's collapse in their share price as evidence of a systemic unraveling, not just a temporary dip. And his core argument was that clients are quietly taking work in-house and that they're doing it with AI tools that make the old agency structures redundant. And Roy went on to provide some insight, some further insight, and also some steps and suggestions. So we're going to dig into this. But Roy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Jenny. Lovely to be here again. Gosh, I've forgotten we've done two, haven't we? Way back in 2023. My gosh, a lot has happened since then.
I know, and I can't wait to get to hear what's happening. So first of all, let's talk about that post, because as you said just recently, I mean, you basically got told off by David Baker, who I absolutely, you know how I love David.
Yeah.
You got a big telling off, and that was quite divisive. But like, why did you write that post? Let's start there.
Well, you know, just a quick background into kind of why I'm allowed to write that post. You know, I'm 25 years in agency land with a few stints on the client side, and I've worn many hats, including today's hat as well. I'm having a bad hair day, and anyone who knows me, that's a very difficult thing for me to do, but it's nonetheless a hat for today. And so I've been in strategy, I've been in development, in design, in production, innovation. So I've seen a few waves. So we're old enough to remember the very first internet wave, the dot-com boom in the late 90s, early 2000s, and been through several since then, including mobile and Web3 and all the ones in between. So I've been around the block a little bit. Now, latterly in the last few years, myself and Tom, my co-founder, are running Generate. So we are a specific AI consultancy. That's all we do. We're in these strategic conversations, in the tools every day, implementing every day. So it gives me a right to understand a bit about the agency world and quite a lot about AI in terms of where it's going. So that's the kind of background, I guess, into my expertise and why I wrote the post. And of course, LinkedIn is a town hall. We know this, right? It's a social media platform. It's there for conversation. It's still kind of one of the outposts that you can get sensible conversation in. Of course, you've got X and TikTok and other platforms as well, and other flavors are available. But LinkedIn is kind of still the business town hall, the business area to be conversing in. So therefore, it's a good place to voice opinions, and it's a good place to get hopefully measured comeback and feedback and opinions on potentially contentious arguments. So basically, you could argue quite strongly it's a deliberate provocation, which is fair, because you need to put out your opinions, you need to put out your views, and of course what you want is conversation. And we know that to the left or to the right, whatever it might be, people have strong opinions if opinions are well held and put forward. So I guess it was deliberate as a provocation. On that note, it did exactly what it should have done, got a conversation started. But I do think it is directionally true. I'm not saying that agencies are dead. There's 30,000 plus agencies in the UK. I'm not saying they're all going to be gone, dead and buried in 16 months. But directionally, we've got a challenge, right? So the timeline is symbolic, but the trend is real. And where I kind of took it was, and again, we had a load of interesting conversations on this, where I took one piece of data around WPP and their share price, which blew up. Half of the comments were about that, suggesting you can't look at agency land and agencies just based on a massive holding company. What the hell are you talking about? But it's a bellwether still, right? Now, On the converse side, I would argue that publicists and other Omnicoms and others are doing pretty well actually. But WPP, nonetheless, as a large holding company, is an interesting bellwether for agency land, where it's going. So, and I just felt that, and I do feel that we're not in a cycle as a systemic change happening for some of the reasons that we're going to go into. So that wake up call was to force a conversation, and I think because we talk to clients a lot, we do work with some agencies, but we work with on brands as well mainly. But the conversations that we've been having around AI are multifaceted. Some are leaning very heavily into it. Some are not really getting involved at all. And some are really kind of arm crossing and not giving themselves any kind of way into AI and saying, no, we're not doing that. We're going to stay human and that's fine. So all those things kind of combined with the massive change in and the upswing in the tools that we know, the big ones, in GPTs and Geminis and Perplexities and Anthropics. So all those things coming together with an old model, an agency model, which is based on, on hours and time spent, I think isn't fit for purpose. And that was the kernel of the idea for the post. And I think why it went viral was partly to do with the language that was used and the provocation. That's fine and that's acceptable. But it's also, there's a truth behind it. It's not there for just the hyperbole sake. It's what I feel and what I see kind of a day to day when I talk to agency colleagues and friends as well, and consultancies the same way, and clients too. So I think that there's absolutely some truth in it. But yeah, you could argue it was deliberate in terms of getting a conversation started, which is the whole point, I think, of social media.
Deliberately provocative, which is kind of like your personal brand as well, Roy, I'd say. And you actually got some business out of it, I understand.
Well, it's early stages, so we're having some interesting conversations. But again, this is the point, right? I mean, we're here to inform and to educate and entertain, perhaps as well, as professionals, and it certainly did that. So yeah, some interesting conversations. I think we got a conversation started again because we had a catch up booked in, but decided this is a great conversation to have for your audience too. So timely, I think, is probably the key point.
Now, what I keep hearing, and what you also cited in this post, was the fact that clients are starting to do more in-house. Now, would you say that is mostly the enterprise level clients that are doing that, or are you seeing through the work you're doing with agencies that maybe serve smaller companies and clients, that it's happening across the board?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly from in my personal opinion, absolutely. I mean, you can just look at the conversations we have day to day with peers and colleagues in different size agencies. Is that new business budgets are down, right? They're down significantly, and where's that money going? Now, of course, we're in a strange economic time and political time anyway. On top of the potential hiring freeze in some of the large consultancies and some of the other businesses too, and obviously agency land, all those things are kind of almost coming and coalescing together to make this a kind of a filter, a touch point, or an explosion point, if you like, for these conversations to get started. So I think so, yeah. That's what we're seeing. We're having plenty of conversations with large organizations who are hiring or are getting people into their teams, who are skilling their teams up from the inside to become AI fluent, not just AI tools. And absolutely, we do work with quite a few agencies and know quite a few networks as well around in-housing. And that is exploding. I know we've seen the cycles. If you've been around long enough, you know that 1 minute it's vertical agencies, next minute it's horizontal, the next minute it's in-housing is popular, the next minute it's not, and expertise is popular and so forth. But the trend absolutely, I think, has been the last few years has been towards two things: in-house teams and then in-house agencies as well, kind of dropping people into those areas. So we definitely see that. And again, it makes total sense, doesn't it? We're even though we're really early into this whole AI era, we're still we're quite mature, I guess, in terms of people do understand what GPT can do and what Claude can do and so forth. So there's absolutely no question that we see ourselves being in this every day, that the questions from clients have changed over the last couple of years from what the hell is this you're talking about, Roy? Another AI thing you're mentioning. You've been talking about this for years. What is it? To, yeah, we're using it. We're doing this. Our teams are using it themselves. We've got some very good use cases. Why are we being charged this much money by our agency for this output? So that's absolutely happening. So I think those three things together, the economic environment, the trend towards in-housing, clients understanding more about the technology. It's not as easy as it were to, inverted commas, not that you would pull the wool over people's eyes and just blind people with technology and science. So people can see these tools. They can see that they work in the right way and in the right areas. So if you're doing all those things, that gives us a kind of three-pronged attack towards why the standard kind of agency model, without using and automating and enhancing work with AI, is going to be a problem. And that's what we see.
Before we get into the so what should we do now kind of solutions part of this chat, I think I'd like to share just a few examples. I think you cited in your post about Unilever's AI content studio. You also talked about TikTok's auto-generated campaign systems as kind of early warning signs of that shift. And also from my own experience, I'm following a guy called Jonathan Parsons, who's the marketing director for Clinique in the UK and Europe, who is really sharing some brilliant ways to use AI tools, like lots and lots of marketing specific use cases on LinkedIn, sort of showing how you can do it yourself kind of thing. So I agree with you that there are these signs of things shifting. You actually talk about, let's talk about creativity, Roy, because obviously you're an ex-creative director. And in the post, you painted a bit of a brutal picture. You said, look, a junior creative armed with Midjourney, Sora 2, Nano Banana, and ChatGPT 5 can outproduce senior designers. Can you just put some flavor around that? What do you really mean that? Like, how do you think this is affecting creativity and the people within the agency teams who are responsible for creativity?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, with a bit of provocation. But the truth is, and by the way, that list sounds like some sort of random collection of lawyers. It's a weird bunch. Nano Banana. What do these things mean?
Yeah.
AI has got a naming problem, by the way. So there's a tip for agencies. Talk to the large frontier models and ask them to do some branding work, because there's definitely a missing part there, I think, frankly. Nano Banana, which is better than the official name, which is brings nothing either around the model names. But yeah. So okay, with that in mind and with the provocation, absolutely. So yes, on one side, are you going to replace people with 20 years experience, 10 years experience with an eye and taste and creativity and so forth? No. But on a production layer, are you able to create quicker? Are enterprises doing it? Absolutely. Are the tools overly difficult to learn? Not really. So there's a democratization capability angle here as well. And anyone can use those tools. And that's back to the point of looking at clients and in-housing and so forth and where it's going, because these tools are available, right? A couple of years ago, it was quite difficult to string these together. And with some of the newer tools as well, with sort of MCP from Claude and other agentic processes, you're not looking at just one simple thing. There's a chain here. So a smart, well thought through junior with a couple of years experience will be able to do what a person with 5 or 10 years experience would have taken years to do. So there is that, and there is a slight fear of that, I think, as well. And in fairness, when we go into lots of organisations, much as I'm an ex-creative director as well, so I'm on the creative side, but we see a lot of fear in those teams. And actually, I think just as a mini straw poll, it's probably the team or the teams where we get most friction is that, because AI in itself, when it's data and it's analytics and it's research and it's writing, they're certain things. When it's visual, particularly when it comes to imagery and video as well, it's very divisive. So people go, oh no, we wouldn't use that. That's not a thing. We wouldn't use that for our brand. It just doesn't work. It looks too fake. It's too AI. Now the tools are getting better. I'm not saying it's perfect for everything, but that stack of GPT or Claude, Midjourney or others, VO 3.1 was come out in the last week. Brilliant, by the way. Some great advancements in what that can do as well from Google. And Sora 2, of course, which was fun. Getting hold of that a couple of weeks ago was fun, going around the houses trying to VPN into different areas to try and get hold of it. So these tools are there. And with the right approach and the right mindset and the right tools and training, I would put that up against quite easily anyone with experience. Now, of course, like I said, you can't AI can't give you taste and it can't give you human emotion and human connection. But from a production level, that's where it starts. We've already seen in Hollywood lots of to and fro with AI actors and so forth, and we've seen it across the board. Lots of copyright things going on, so it's still kind of early stages. But you just got to look on your LinkedIn profile and any of your social media channels to see what's available. Just go on X and look at the last things from VO 3.1 that are in the last week or two in Sora. You can see these things are getting way better. And it's only a year or two ago or a year and a half ago, we were seeing Will Smith eating spaghetti, looking like something from a David Cronenberg movie. So it's moved very quickly. Now, should it replace creativity is another question. So that's a separate question. No, I don't think it should. But should it be used as an enhancer, as to speed up our thought, to make us more creative and to lean into the tools? Absolutely. The one more thing I'd say on that is in the mid 1950s, when typewriters came out, were first a thing, you had to have a typewriter license to be able to use one because they were so scared that the written word and writing by hand was going to go away. We've been here before. We've seen this movie play before, right? This is not a new thing. Now, I know AI is much bigger than that. It's not just a simple thing. Probably the same when the printing press came out, right? Oh my gosh, too many Luddites going, oh, it's going to change everything. Incorrect. If thought about in the right way, using the tools effectively speeds up creativity. And that's my kind of posit for this. So yes, I know people get a bit scared and you can't replace everything and it's this and it's that. I get all that. But the tools aren't going anywhere. Doesn't mean it's right for everything. But show me a creative director or a senior designer who isn't using AI or maybe not admitting to use it is another question. And you're probably, I'm sure that most people are using these tools to some description, whether it's for storyboarding or further production down the line. So yeah, creativity is still important. The human part, absolutely crucial. But I would absolutely say that a well-drilled junior can absolutely do what a 5-year experienced person, 5-7 years, could do pretty quickly, and that's my opinion.
Okay, so this is great. You've talked about we're keeping the human judgment. You still need that skill, that lens through which you look at things differently, come up with those more emotive ideas. But clearly, it's this set of tools that we're using now is a way to do things more efficiently and more effectively. But as a result, it's impacting how we do things and how we charge for our services. So let's kind of turn our attentions on the business model itself. So you go in and you work with companies, Roy. How are agency leaders or business owners in general thinking about AI and how it's impacting their business model? Give us some examples of
Yeah.
how they're thinking about it, how it's going to
Yeah.
change things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, any business owner we talk to, certainly on the agency side, is absolutely, um, you can look at the post I did and you can see it's pretty 50-50 in terms of where people are at and where they're not at in terms of of what was put out there. But most businesses we talk to are absolutely leaning into this quite heavily and looking at, in some cases, extending their current processes, looking for those repetitive tasks, and we do a lot of work around that. Where is the task? Where is it in ops? Is it in creative? Is it in briefing? Is it in research or delivery? Where does it sit? So that's a big part of it. So they're looking at those things quite significantly. In lots of cases, it's like I say, looking at your current systems. How can I build something on top of Slack? Can I build something on top of Teams? How do I get my information out of CRM? Is one of our CRM tools with their own AI, which is getting better, but they're still a bit shonky in places. Should I be using that? Should we build an intelligence layer on top of that? All those questions are where we're having conversations with agencies and with brands as well. And so they're leaning into that quite heavily. In some cases, with more forward-thinking businesses, they are actually kind of reconfiguring their business around AI, which is okay. We've got all these tools now just to move across to more of a sort of development flavor with Cursor and with Claude Code and with Codex and so forth. So these tools are really good and we use them as well. These are very, very good tools in terms of development. So we're also talking to agencies and businesses around using those tools to drive new products and services around SEO perhaps, or buying or programmatic. So these tools aren't just creative and strategic tools. They are operational and they're also new business tools if thought about in the right order. So those are the conversations we're absolutely having. So the strategic conversations absolutely are, where does this fit into our business model? And should we be looking at building on top of our existing stack, as it were, or should we be looking at new products and services? And then, of course, it's, well, it does affect people in terms of, well, if we're doing that and we're able to do things more efficiently, but also keep the quality high. And that's the important point. I think some people forget that AI is not just about efficiency. Used in the right way with the right tools and the right training and the right process and the workflows, the quality is there as well. So there's these two things happening at the same time, which sometimes people find it, don't get their head into it. It's all about efficiency. It's not just about efficiency, far from it. So I think there's that. People are definitely doing that. And then from a kind of commercial perspective, I think trust and transparency are back to where they where they always should be, which is with our clients. Um, we're trusted advisors, right? That's the place we want to be, and we understand their business as well as they do and better. We're the experts in our areas, and we can advise in the right way. So the old model of and it's very difficult to move across, but it is where it's going, of kind of not just doing timesheets and doing hours and based on outcomes rather than hours spent. That's the important bit. So we do see the best businesses, agencies, and brands and clients looking at that and going, right, okay, how does this affect our business model? Do we need to have more clients and charge less? Do we have longer retainers? Are we in front of this AI so we can help them to be more efficient? So therefore, you have to look at, in some cases, the business model and what you were charging for previously. But that's just a technology shift, right? You're not going to change that. And because, like I said earlier, because clients and brands and businesses are people, they see what's out there. They can look at the news and look at the tech press and so forth, and they can try the tools themselves. That they understand the tools, maybe not as well as people using them every day, but they're having those conversations. Well, if you were charging X before, surely you can do it quicker. And we've seen a couple of really bad examples of that with, I think recently in Australia, Deloitte unfortunately had an issue with one of their Australian government initiatives where it wasn't checked by whomever. AI was used and made up some footnotes and some examples of research that didn't actually exist, and they had to have a massive refund. So that trust piece is really important. If you are using AI, which most people are, I'm positing from the conversations we have, whether it's just to advanced thinking or research, or further down the line from the kind of production level, if you like, across all those research, analytics, creativity, data, code areas, that transparency has to be front and center because people aren't stupid. They know the tools, and you should never lie, of course. But it's important that people know that, because you'd rather be in a situation where you're going to your client saying, right, our business model is changing. We're aware of AI. We're doing things quicker, but we've got this added value piece. We've got these extra ways we can help, or we can be your AI advisor, or whatever it might be. So I think clinging on to, I'm not picking on SEO, but whatever it might be, which is changing, rapidly as well. But that's just a service on top of SEO. But you can change. So I think that, and to get back to the post I did, I think the agencies that aren't changing are just trying to stick in and dig into what got you here, won't get you there kind of thing, is they're going to have a problem. Because if you're not leaning into it, clients are already doing it. So either you're going to get sacked, you're going to have your fees massively reduced, and worst case, you can't get new business. I mean, that's the three of the four horsemen, isn't it? For agencies, you don't want any of those things. So driving it forward, thinking sensibly about your own business strategy, what you're charging for, and not just volume and going through to kind of timesheets and outputs, and it's much more about outcomes. And I think if you do that, you won't go far wrong.
I think that's the bit that excites me the most. First of all, to say that, I've, obviously I train account managers, and they are coming back saying, I'm having conversations with my clients, and they're saying, you're charging how much? Why hasn't my cost estimate changed? Or they're saying, oh, how did you do that video? Kind of talk me through that process of doing it, which in itself is another idea for a product that the agency can provide, is a kind of a how-to kind of more. But I loved what you said there, which I just want to reiterate, the three kind of main areas where agency owners have to think about. So first of all, how can we deliver our current services, more efficiently? So looking at repetitive tasks and how we could speed things up. The second thing is, what are the current systems we're already using? They're all AIs being embedded in all of the CRM systems like HubSpot, Slack, etc. So how can we build an intelligence layer? And then the third bit, which I think is one of the most exciting, is looking at what the value we're bringing to our clients is in terms of outcomes, and developing our own products and our own technical solutions with the tools that we have available. So can you dig into that a bit more? Because even myself, who I'm not a coder, but I'm doing, using tools like Replit and Claude artifacts to create tools and apps for my clients to do things smarter and more efficiently. So those could be standalone products that I sell separately.
Yeah.
So can you go a little bit deeper, Roy, into this, what I think is the most exciting, a bit of the most exciting thing of how agencies are creating added value solutions?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's those, and again, it's so it's easy because obviously prompting in the right order and understanding how to get the best out of systems is part of it. That's back to the AI fluency thing I was saying earlier. So there's training, but there's also being fluent in understanding why, the business reasons behind it, what the outputs and the outcomes you're trying to get to. So that whole kind of AI fluent piece on top of just knowing a tool is really important. But I think that leads on to understanding then the workflows and the processes, like you said about Claude Code and Codex and Replit and Cursor and all these really interesting tools and Vercel and so forth. So I guess where we come from is, and we've done quite a lot of this with the training we've done over the last year, of getting people to understand first of all the mindset, then understanding what's possible, and then thinking through their own work and where there might be additional added value. So there's lots of examples of that. Some of the things that we've looked at for ourselves, we built our own tools. We've got and we've developed quite successfully. So we're doing some stuff around ESG. We've got a product called Greenwash Guardian, which came out of an itch, which was how hard is it to help people to understand what the compliance looks like globally. That's difficult. It's not that difficult with AI now. And if you put the right process behind it, that's a product that we're actually developing right now. We did exactly the same thing with the itch that we were scratching for ourselves, which was it's very difficult to do go-to-market as an agency, and we're growing, we're moving fast, but the market's moving very quickly, so we need to keep on top of everything. How do we do that for our own marketing? And then that became a product that we've actually developed in the same way, added value, and we now have that as part of our service offering, and that is a sales and marketing ecosystem, and that covers everything from go-to-market in terms of lead generation, cold outreach, nurture, content intelligence, content repurposing, AI SEO, and a whole bunch of other modules. So it's a great example of, and we've built that in some parts using the tools that I just mentioned, obviously with development too, and proper process and robustness on top of that. So there's two good examples of things that we're doing, which came from scratching an itch of how easy would it be to X, and that's something I think we could bring into agencies and all businesses, which is, well, look at your current services. Where would AI automate it? If in some ways use GPT or Claude as your assistant or your co-creator. We're an agency that sells X. We don't want to be obsolete in 18 months. These are our services, and you can anonymize those, of course, and be safe in terms of what you're putting into the models. And think about, give me some thoughts and some ideas and some thought starters or some uncommon ideas for what could be automated. This is where it starts, right? Bring that into your town hall, bring that into your next meeting, whatever your internal comms meeting is, or your leadership meeting. Start thinking these things through, because the tools themselves and the smaller tools is a great place to start. Is do it for yourself first. Understand what the value is for whatever you're doing, research or SEO or programmatic or creative. Is there storyboarding tools you could build? Is there quicker ways to get to an answer? Is there brief templates you could look at from things you've done previously, repetitive tasks, right? Those are the things that, which is back to classic innovation, isn't it? But it's just so much faster now. You can get there really quickly with the tools and the coding tools as well. And you can spin up things pretty quickly. So you're not just going into your internal meeting saying, I think we should look at this piece of automation for our services and maybe we could apply that to our clients. And if you're not doing the quarterly client reviews, as you know, as an account management expert, that you're not doing and not bringing to the pot, you've got a big problem, because you should be bringing those things to your clients. See, with the flavor of whatever sector or whatever your service offering is, doing those things, I think, are going to separate the agencies who are mid and are going to fail the ones who thrive over the next 18 months, 2, 3, 5 years, because it's quick to do these things. Doesn't mean to say you don't have to go through a process of building correctly and robustly. You have to, but to get things in front of people, first of all, in your own business, to say, look, we've got some ideas. This is our service offering, and I've thought about these two things that AI could help with to make things quicker or more efficient or higher quality. That's a great thing to go to your clients with, no? So understanding that process, I think, is really important, and we don't see enough of that, to be honest, in the teams that we work with. They get a little bit. There's a little bit of scare factor of, oh, what should I put into the models, and would it work, and is it a little bit fake because I've just done it really quickly? None of those things are, with the right reasoning behind it and the right process, of course. But those are the people, and there'll be people in the teams listening to this who want to do that, who are doing it, or maybe being blocked, or maybe they're a bit worried about using it, or is it going to affect my job if I do this? I'm doing it a lot quicker than I was. Got to get over that, because this stuff's happening. So if you take that approach, I think any agency that does that type of thinking will be okay, in my view.
I think this is a really good tip, actually. Apply the thinking to your own business first to give you some ideas and some tests. But maybe gamify it as well, because if you can encourage your teams, when you come back from client meetings and having conversations with clients, what problems do they have? What outcomes do they want to achieve? I've done it to my business, custom GPTs, tools, apps, and you've obviously done it. And I think it's quite an exciting area for a lot of people, not for everybody, but it is exciting for a lot of people. I think the other thing, Roy, is this thing about internal dynamics. If the senior leadership team is very enthused by it and really want to, embrace it, then it's a change management program, isn't it, for bringing the whole team on the journey? Because otherwise you get all of this worry, anxiety. And that's probably where a lot of that feedback came on your post, was people are scared, myself included. Yes, I'm enjoying experimenting and stuff, but it is change, and it's huge change. So let's talk about that anxiety, the resistance, also some of the how they verbalize those resistances, like safety, risk, client data. Talk to me about that piece.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely, and again, let's not be ageist, but I can say that because I'm old. You do sometimes find that, and it's not always the case, but leadership have some cost, and comfort, and maybe a bit of denial sometimes, that we got here based on, but and even in smaller agencies, in the founder as well, but in larger ones with the leadership team of, well, I've got 20 years experience. This is how we've always done it. Yes, I know it's technology, but we're not going to change that much, and we're going to go slowly, and that's fine too. That's okay, because you shouldn't jump in and just go absolutely crazy. But I think there's a lot of that around, and we do see a lot of this, actually. So it's not just an age thing. Sometimes you get it in different areas, as creative teams and finance and other areas too. So I think there's a part of that, and it's not just an age thing, but it is a factor. I think as well, a lot comes back to culture, to be honest. Is if you're in an organization with an open culture and a learning culture, and everyone says they do that, but on the ground, it's not always the case. That people are a little bit fearful of stepping forward and saying, I'm using AI, and being shut down for, oh, it's risky, it's never going to work, it just looks crap, or it will just overly bias our data. And there's loads of reasons why it won't work, right? So we do see some of those, the rebels, as we call them. There's different types of people in an organization. So from maximalists down to rebels, which I think we've talked about before. But so I think there's that. I think there's also the structure of the business. How often are people being trained? Is it just a SOP? Is it something that people do twice a year? Is there an actual training budget behind it? Is there time for people to use these tools and to bring them back into the business and to discuss and talk through? I think that's definitely part of it as well. And then in the best organizations, there's often a slice of reverse training for necessarily younger, but more experienced AI people to train older or more experienced or whatever it might be. So there's almost a little bit of that reverse kind of psychology too, which is we're on the tools, we're doing it, but we're not senior, therefore we're not being listened to. So if you have that open culture, I think that really helps. We do a lot of work around that kind of culture and alignment piece, because there is a lot of fear disguised as confidence sometimes. Yeah, we're going to do this, and you've got to be careful with that, right? All agencies need to be mindful of that. So I think it's part of that. I think there's there's identity as well, perhaps for maybe some of the leadership, that the old model was what we built the business on, and we don't want to change. And there's a bit of that, but I think that's changing, to be honest. So we've done a load of work in this area on those alignment bits and understanding of what people are using in organizations and how much AI they're using. And we often see 100% ChatGPT use. Now, there is a thing called, well, it's been named shadow AI, which is, kind of sounds a bit scary, but which maybe people would be familiar with, which is people are using these systems and tools, but they're not using them on official work platforms and systems because they've been locked out. So typical example would be Copilot, which is very good. It's a bit of a misunderstanding of Copilot, I think, out there. It's actually a very good tool, but it is restricted in some cases depending on the version you've got. But lots of people are using these tools, but they don't want people to know about it because maybe I'm doing my job quicker, or maybe that brilliant idea I had wasn't mine. And there's lots of, not fear necessarily, but there's lots of different kind of interplaying things in play here, I think. So all those things kind of added up is what helps either people progress really quickly or get blocked at the gate, the AI gate, if you like. So I think for leaders, seeing that urgency, making sure the culture is open, making sure that their teams are able to use the tools in the right and the most effective way, in the most safe way, of course, and knowing that your teams are likely 100% using ChatGPT, because we've done plenty of anonymized surveys and it's almost at that now. It's in the 95 and above range. Everyone's using it because it helps, right? Whatever way you want to use it, it helps you with thinking or questions or more complex things as well, of course. So I think, yeah, it's getting that urgency, being open about it, being collaborative, and letting people have their say in an organization, and that will drive forward things like ideas, innovations, bringing that to your clients, having a better business model for the future and so forth. So important stuff.
You've hit on something that came up in my conversation with Hybrid Legal. Is the reality is teams are using their own ChatGPT account. Sometimes that's the personal account and not the one that's been designated to use for the organization. And that the danger of that is if they are using it for work use to speed things up, and as you say, to kind of get better at their job but not having to tell anyone, then they could be inadvertently feeding in client data or anything that's private, which ultimately, if it got out, would deem their company liable for going against what's been agreed with the client. So there is that huge risk. The other thing I wanted to kind of come back to was, talk to me about Microsoft Copilot, because what you just said there was, it's actually quite a good tool. It's got sort of a bad rap. My understanding is a lot of the enterprise level clients are using Microsoft Copilot because it is, it's like they've already got that in their tech stack. Why wouldn't they? Talk to me about that tool, because I was approached recently to do a training for an account management team who predominantly use Microsoft Copilot. So do you think it's a decent enough, and that Microsoft presumably are not going to be lying down and standing still, are they, in terms of keeping it updated?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it gets a bit of a bad rap, actually, but it is the kind of de facto enterprise tool. Now, of course, there's different levels, and the lower levels you are, the more locked down it can be, and it depends on your organization, of course. One quick aside, though, is interesting, is that Microsoft the general sense of travel is that they are, in some cases, decoupling from OpenAI. So they had a couple of models recently. Yeah, one came out, if I can recall the name, quite recently, one of their own models they were testing. I think it was an image model. Now, because OpenAI, obviously the sort of new but behemoth of and with all the mindset of the brand and so forth, and something like, gosh, what was the recent figure? 800 million users and all these large stats, 10% of the world using it, etc. So important. I think Microsoft are absolutely not taking that lying down. They won't let OpenAI just run away with it either, or the other large players either. So no, absolutely. Copilot, we do work on Copilot. It doesn't do everything, but like I say, the higher up you go, the more open it is, or it can be. But again, as long as it's in the systems, and there's no surprise that it's popular, because you're in the systems, it's secure, and it helps. It just, people are kind of used to ChatGPT and being over here in a box, but that's changing as well, by the way. So I guess with Copilot and the other tools in Gemini and the ones that are kind of embedded, and some of the things like SAP and other tools as well, and CRM tools and Notion as well. They've all got their own AI, right? So everyone's trying to get their piece, make sure that they're in the conversation going forward and so forth. So Microsoft, absolutely great tool. Probably got a bad rap because people are likely, in some cases, on the lower level stuff where it's locked down and it can't do as many things. It can't do as much research, can't do deep research, or it can't do data analysis and so forth. But that will change, I think, over time. It's a bit like we like to talk about, when Zero, the finance package, when that became big enough for it to be trusted to run your accounts. Sage was before that, and others before that. It's a great example, isn't it, of at what point does the trust sort of barometer swing enough to say, no, this is used by enough people, it must be okay. There's a bit of that going on, and I think that's changing anyway in terms of people's understanding of what AI can do. So yeah, Copilot, great tool. Yeah, nothing bad to say about it.
Amazing. Another couple of things that I just wanted to mention before I ask you, kind of, if you were to go into a company, how would you work with them? Is I was listening to a podcast with the owner of the founder of Perplexity, right? Perplexity, I love it. It's just one of my go-to tools. And in 3 years, the company, like from starting 3 years ago, is now worth 20 billion. I had to re-listen to that because I thought, so where is the money exchanging hands in the world right now? It's all in this space, isn't it?
Yep.
And the other thing to say, going back a step, was your point about teams are using shadow AI. There was a statistic last year, Microsoft and LinkedIn did a survey. 66% of leaders said they wouldn't employ someone without AI skills. So this is the urgency that I think a lot of people are feeling. So if the leadership team isn't on board, they're feeling that they want to upskill anyway. So they're seeking ways of doing that themselves independently. So Roy, you go into a company, let's suppose like the listeners are agency owners.
Yeah.
You're going into a mid-sized agency. How do you work with them? What do you do first? How do you proceed, and what do you make sure is in place for that company?
Well, first thing we do is go to the coffee machine, and I don't drink, and I walk past it 'cause I don't drink coffee. I have a cup of tea. That's what we generally do. But yeah, as any good business owner would know, when you're a professional advisor, it's listening. They know a lot of the answers, and it's immediately not trying to find a solution too quickly. That's really the key thing here. We are in. I love talking, but we are in a listening career, right? A listening business. That's what we do. We listen. We synthesize. We use AI tools to help to do that, and we understand, right? And then we come back with a simple, clear, effective plan of action. That's really what we do. And then you can overlay anything on top of that, including AI. So what that looks like in practice is three things really, for businesses and agencies as well who we work with. Is first of all understanding what is the state of play, and that can be done a number of ways. What we tend to do is run alignment pieces, as I mentioned, which is understanding the temperature and the benchmark currently, and we can benchmark that anonymized against all of the industry work out there and the stats and the stuff that we've done as well. We've done loads of this stuff, so we've got a very good understanding of where organizations fit and sit and their current state of play and where the trends are going, the patterns. So we do that first. Very important to do that. We try not to jump into training or implementation or repetitive tasks before understanding that. But it's not always the case. Sometimes there's a brief and that's okay, but I'll get onto that. So very often, sort of 70, 80%, it's doing that first, which is a piece of work to understand what is happening in the business. And what comes out of that, which is always fascinating, is exactly right. The shadow AI pieces, where the fear and the uncertainty is, the level of experience. And the fascinating thing about it is what comes out of those short but really effective alignment pieces is where the gaps are and where the opportunities and the challenges are. Because we need to ask your teams, right? This is what you need to do. They know this stuff, right? Your teams are in there every day working with clients, account management and development and production and traffic, whatever it might be, right? Everyone's working together and doing different things. So finding out what's happening is really important. And generally based on that, it's either one or two things. So what we would call strategic training. So that is finding out what those gaps are. If there are gaps indeed in knowledge and understanding and tools, we would go and do that. So that would typically look like an engagement where We go understand per team what was necessary, what was required. Was it a mindset issue, a challenge? What are the tools and workflow processes? And very importantly, what's the current understanding? So we'll kind of go and do that and train based on that. That leads on to very often discovery, which is kind of, it's the first part of it anyway, really. The training part is often part of the discovery. And that is doing a sprint basically of 4 to 6 weeks of strategic discovery, of understanding, okay, you've got all these understanding, maybe we've got some training over here that's happening, but we want to find out where those repetitive tasks are per department, where the cross collaboration is, where the challenges are, and where the biggest ROI is going to be. So it's a business case finding scenario. And then we go and we score that, lead score it against the highest impact, lowest complexity areas where you can make some big wins, immediate and longer term wins. And then, of course, we go and do implementation. So we've got an engineering team as well. So we often find these are the challenges and the biggest couple of areas that we should be looking at. And then we're going to run some pilots based on that. And we've got our own engineers, our own deployment team, works very closely with clients, working on all the tools and developing systems and platforms, central intelligence layer, sales and marketing, or production, or ops, or finance, whatever the appropriate thing to do is. And we go and build that as well. So we've got quite a privileged position, actually, to be honest, which I love working every day on this stuff, which is understanding businesses, doing the strategic part, the training part, but then actually doing something about it. So that's really good. Love doing that piece. That implementation piece is probably a large percentage of what we do. And the last thing I'd say is on top of that is it's often very a large part of what we do is to get teams up to speed so they can do it themselves. So obviously it's great for us to do stuff and everything else, but with teams who've got development teams and teams who've got marketing teams and so forth, it's often either placing in systems or processes, sometimes our tools as well, and our platforms I've mentioned, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's their own thing that they're doing while building. It's very specific. So across the board, it makes it super fascinating because you are just, all we do every day is talk to interesting businesses, listen a load, come back with clarification, simplify the highest impact areas, and then go and build them. So it's a brilliant thing. I mean, it's been my favorite business, I think, and I've done a few that I've been involved in and started because what else would you want to be doing in an AI world is exactly this. So we're super happy.
Your skill set very much lends itself to doing this kind of thing, Roy, and you get to work with the lovely Tom Head as well.
Well, that's the negative, but there's always a downside. But apart from that, that's great. Yeah, Tom, co-founder Tom. Shout out to Tom, top guy, super smart. Yeah, we've gone pretty far in the last couple of years. So yeah, exciting stuff to come.
I love reading the banter between you two. It's lovely. Okay, final question. Well, two questions. Sorry. First question, that centralized intelligence layer that typically sort of occurs with agencies specifically, let's say, what does that actually look like typically? Like what are the component parts? Just bring it to life a little bit for me.
Yeah. So that is initially looking at your systems. So whether you're using Microsoft Dynamics or Slack or Teams, understanding across the board where that sits, what existing systems exist, what AIs are on top of that, looking at your company data, the things that are unstructured, because most data is actually unstructured, frankly. We know this, that it's in emails and it's in Slack channels and it's in messages and so forth, right? We know this because we do this every day with businesses. So it's understanding that part and what that data looks like, how we can pre-process it, clean it, query it, how that might then apply to having an intelligence layer sitting on top of it. Because that's what we're talking about really here is knowledge bases and information and research and marketing and ops. So all those different areas can be applied once you've got a central intelligence layer, and that is clean data, an understanding of what you have and haven't got, and how that might be applied to your most important business case. So that's chiefly what it is.
Gotcha. Okay, because yeah, you're right. I mean, I was just thinking about it. Most agencies have got a CRM system, a Slack system, an email system, a product, what do you call it, a workflow, project management system.
PM
So
tools.
there's all these different systems not talking to each other.
Yes, they don't, and they don't, and God bless them, they are. So I shouldn't say that. They are, and they've all got their individual roots, and of course they're all plugging in AI to it, and that's fine. But getting them to talk together, that's the key, and that's the complexity, and that's what we spend a lot of time doing. Is what is the relevant data, and how do we apply that data, and how can we access it more quickly and more effectively, and what do you do with that data, whether it be a better AI SEO tool or a better campaign brief or creative or content repurpose. or data or research or a better invoicing system. We've done loads of interesting stuff just away from the creative stuff around operational efficiency. Spend loads of time in that area, which is very unsexy, but super, super ROI focused, because changing those systems and changing the things that come into you. A simple example would be, you get 100 inputs into your inbox a day, and you don't know which ones are important, which ones aren't. In certain areas in manufacturing, we've worked in that space. There's the wins there are massive. The productivity gains are super, super high. So it's actually understanding that stuff which makes it really complex but fascinating and great to work in.
Yeah, and lots of ROI, as you say. Okay, Roy,
Absolutely,
final
yeah.
thing. For those
Yeah.
people that read that post, you're a lovely guy. You're not trying to upset anyone, are you? Give
Well,
give listeners some kind of final piece of advice and then your contact details.
okay. Right. I'm reasonably nice. I'll let other people say that. But yes, I'm not being provocative for the sake of it, but I'd like to get a conversation started. I would say three things. If I was going to rebuild the agency of tomorrow right now, I would have three M's. I'd have a better mindset. So I would teach curiosity and experimentation and speed. I would change my model to focus on outcomes and not inputs and timesheets. And I would look at mechanics as well in the business, like design workflows where AI and humans can kind of co-create. There's the three things I would do if I'm building, and that's what we are doing, but mindset, model, and mechanics. If you kept that in mind, you won't go far wrong. If anyone wants to get in contact, it's generate.com, G3NR8.com. We've got a load of interesting stuff and assets and lead magnets and all sorts of different things that we have available for people to use. We've got AI SEO guides, we've got knowledge base guides, we've got sales and marketing agents, top tens, all sorts of interesting stuff. We are also doing some agency roundtables as well. So if anyone wants to get in contact, it's roy@generate.com. Please feel free to give me a shout. We're doing agency specific roundtables around marketing and ops and what's happening next. So if you want to come to one of those, give us a shout. And last thing is, and I'm sure we'll put these in my notes, Jenny, anyway, is
We will.
if you're not on our newsletter, you are missing out massively. Every week we do our newsletter, no fluff, no nonsense, takes about 3 minutes to read, and we always lead with the world famous bad AI. Every week we absolutely skewer someone, or usually a large business, who's got it wrong. And it is without question, the feedback we get from it is absolutely brilliant, because we go a little bit punchy, it's a little bit fun and engaging, and in case things can't be serious all the time, right? We've got a good sense of humor, myself and Tom. We like to be a bit memorable. We work like this as people. That's how we work when you work with us as well. So if you fancy joining up with that, it's generate.com/newsletter, but I'm sure we can stick it in the notes. So feel free to do any of those things and get some value out of AI and us. And feel free to give me a shout.
What a wonderful way to close. Roy, thank you so much for joining me, and we will put all the links in the show notes.
No problem. Thanks again, Jenny. Appreciate it.